Exercise 312, we're going to be able to use some of the slot tools to make the odd brown shapes. Looking at the dimensions, we're kind of through the center, so a couple of center lines will help. We have a bilateral dimension, limit dimension, so fairly tight tolerance. And let's see, we're in metrics, so we'll take care of those as we get into the sketch. So again, we don't really have height, so the intent is not to make a solid, but we'll get pretty close. So pull up the part, turn on the origin, change the units to millimeters, grams, and seconds, open up a sketch on the front plane, and then we'll go into the center line, vertical, infinite length, attach it to the origin. Let's see, we need to accept that and go back to horizontal, attach it to the origin, then I can select. Okay, so mentioned the slots. Let's see if there's they're present. Okay, so on the slots we have the straight slot to the two endpoints, and then a center point. Basically draw it from the center out, and then a 3-point arc, center point arc, and then we're back to the polygon. Alright, so let's pick a point and we'll drag it out, and this is going to be a center line on top of a center line, and pretty much center line on top of a center line. We probably could have just offset that, but I think that'll be fine. So radius of 22, and then a height of 22, so more radius of 11, and then the distance, we're given 25. And because these are sharing those center points, their concentricity, they'll move together. Alright, so that gives us our first slot. Let's go into the sketch entities, and we'll pick up, looks like our curve slot is going to be a center point, so, and it goes whichever way it goes, and then we'll drag out. And I think on this one, it's doing basically the same thing, 22 and 22. Now we can go ahead and we'll pick those up, bring it to the same spot. Alright, so radius of 22. And then we'll see if I go between the two arcs, it gives me the linear. Alright, so we need to be 60 off of the center. And then we have an angle of 22 degrees or 40 degrees. So I could draw a center line, or we could utilize the 3-point method. So the vertex, one endpoint, and the other endpoint switches us to an angle. Yeah, so it didn't like something there. Alright, so let's Control Z, we'll get out of that. Bring this back a little bit closer. See if that picked up. There we go. Now they're moving together. So we'll try that again. Vertex, endpoint, endpoint, and we're a little closer to the end dimension, so that looks pretty good. And then 148 between the centers. Oh, and then that, I guess when I undid, or when I did the undo, that's reverted back. So Alright, so we've got our shapes, we've got our geometry. Alright, so next set of circles, sketch entities, and we have a diameter on that one's our limit dimension. Okay, so the outside will be 40 on the diameter. It's 19 off of the center. And from the base up, we have 48. Alright, so our limit dimension, go ahead and place that, and we'll just accept whatever it pulls in there, so we can pull this, bring this back over. Alright, so we're looking at maximum material condition, 18.99 being the smallest number. That's the most material in that that through bore in that hole. So 1905 would be larger, so we want to make sure that we're at the 18.99. There may be reasons why you'd want to be at the least material condition, but for the most part, it's going to be safer to stay at that maximum material. So let's go limit, and we have a 6.006 or 0.06, and then that's going to give us the 1905 to 1899. All right, the other one that I just realized is missing was at the origin, so place those two back into the dimension, and we have a radius or a diameter of 44. Oh, that was the radius of 35. So let's switch that over to radius, and that way I can just type it in instead of doing the math. Alright, so again, 28.52 to 28.57. 28.52 is our maximum material condition. And then we'll go back to the limit. And we have 0.05. Alright, so 28.57, 28.52. Alright, so those are looking pretty good. Seeing if I missed anything. And then it's just going to be a matter of which side do I want to start drawing off of. Alright, so go into the line command. That might have picked up tangency. Oh, and that's going to come down to there. Okay, so I have to follow my logic here, coming tangent to the tangent of the 35, and then we need the little radius into, so that's going to be a 3 point. Okay, so we get it close. We have the dashed lines that we need to drag a little bit further, getting it close to our geometry. Radius of 16. And then it didn't quite go defined. So we've got the coincident, but you can kind of see the overlap and the overlap. So we're going to pick circle, pick the arc, go tangent, pick the arc, pick the circle, and go tangent. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. And then we have another in the upper that's also 16 millimeters. Alright, even though it's facing the wrong way, you can still get it in there. So let's make sure the 16 fits. And then we'll do the same, select, control, select. I must have missed, so go tangent. Alright, so those are looking pretty good. And then the last arc, not going to assume that it looks pretty far away, so I'm not going to assume that it is going to go right to that arc. So select, Control Select, Tangent. Let's go ahead and put the dimension on it. Okay, so the 44 looks good. And with that being able to move, and we can go tangent. Alright, so again, I would probably leave this with the contours and regions and just go ahead and build the geometry around it. But since we don't have heights, can make some assumptions that would probably build the outside shapes, and then the bosses would end up being bosses, but they could be spot faces as well. So given that, I'll need to be in Sketch Tools, and we'll go to Trim Entities, and we'll start bringing this back. And so got to make sure to get all of those segments. The center lines are going to be cutting objects. So other than that, looks pretty good. Had the 44, the 28. Oh, there was another one in there. Okay. And let's draw one more circle. And I wouldn't have caught that if I didn't trim it out. So, well, would have caught it eventually. But part of the process going through the iterations is to make sure that the geometry gets complete. Alright, so we'll go ahead and accept that and save it. To our folder.